Hello, everyone. This is Kieran again with the fifth session of your grammar clinic. So today we are going to be looking at something that's going to be super useful for you, and this is active and passive voice. So if you haven't already joined the grammar clinics, they are part of a series of workshops that are going to have a look at improving your foundational use of grammar in order to improve the other parts of your academic English. So today we're looking at active and passive voice. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at this section that we've got here. Okay, so have a look at that picture and let's see what it is describing. Okay, so have a look at the picture. You can see that we have two characters there, and obviously something is going on. So we have the same sentence here, but different things are highlighted. Okay, so we've got the cat chased the mouse. So in that section, the cat is the subject of the sentence. This is the person or thing which is doing the action. Then we've got the cat chased the mouse. So chased here is the verb, and that is the action. And then we have the cat chased the mouse. So in that situation, the mouse is the object. So the vast majority of sentences in English all follow that pattern of having a subject and a verb, and then usually they come with an object as well. So that's what happens in normal sentences, and that is how it is connected to active and passive voice that we're going to have a look at today. So try to remember those three things if you can, because we're going to be mentioning them a lot. So, as we've mentioned then, subject, verb, object, that is the idea of the active voice. Okay, so we've got this example here of the lecturer set the homework. So the lecturer is the subject, set is the verb, and then the homework is the object, the thing. Okay, so the lecturer, the subject, is the person who does the action, set is the action, and then the homework is the object, the thing that is done by the action. Okay, so that is what happens in a normal sentence, the active voice. Okay, but we also have another construction in English which is called the passive voice, and the passive voice looks a little bit different. Okay, so in this one, we have the homework was set by the lecturer. Okay, so this time we still have the homework, but this is at the start of the sentence now. So we have the object. Then we've got the verb was set. So notice the difference there. And then we have the lecturer, which is now at the end of the sentence, but we're still including the subject. Okay, so we've got the active voice on the left, we've got the passive voice on the right, and we can see that there are a couple of differences. Okay, so the word order is different to begin with. And then also you will see that the verb has been made differently. Okay, so in the first one, we have set, but in the second one, we have was set. Okay, so that's something we'll come to in a minute. Okay, so between the active and the passive, we've got different word order and a different way that the verb is created. So let's look at the normal one for now, which is active voice. So why do we use active voice? Well, the reason is that you want to show the subject as the main part of the sentence. Okay, so the subject of the sentence is the thing or the person doing the action, and you want to focus on the person who is doing the action. Okay, and you're also trying to emphasize that it is a direct action. This person or this thing did this thing. Okay? So that's why it's the most common type of sentence in English, because we say this person did this thing. Okay, so there's a couple more examples here of active voice sentences. So these should be very simple for you. So the committee approved the proposal. Okay, the committee did the action and the action was approving, and the result was the proposal. Okay, the team delivered the project on time, so we know who did it. The team, we know what the action was, delivering it, and we know what the object was, the project. Okay, and then in the third sentence underneath, the artist created a stunning mural. So we have the artist. This is the person who does the action. We've got created, which is the action. And then we've got the object, which was the stunning mural. So that is, as I've said before, active voice. This is generally how we create sentences. But let's have a look at what is on the other side. Okay, so on the other side, we have the idea of the passive voice. Okay, so this is a rarer way of constructing sentences. And when you're thinking about academic English, passive voice is a little bit more common in academic English. Okay, because it may be that you want to focus on the process or the result more than who did the action. Okay, so if you're describing your methodology, or if you're talking about your process in an assignment, this is where you could use the passive voice. Okay, so like we see here on the screen, the object is the important thing in the passive voice. Okay, because we want to show what happened to the object rather than the person or thing that did the action. Okay, so we know, of course, that the action has to be performed by someone or something, but in the passive voice, it's not important to actually say who did it. The only important thing is that the action happened. Okay, so it may be that you don't know who did the action, so passive voice is good for that. It may be that the person who did the action is not important. That's why you would use the passive voice as well. So in the other workshops that we've delivered in the English support department, we've discussed how in your assignments, they should be as impersonal as possible. Okay, so you're not saying like, I did something, my study showed. It is more important in that situation to use passive voice. Okay, so you could say that it was proven, it was shown, it was delivered. Okay, that is why you would use the passive voice, because it is more impersonal, because you're not saying who did the action. All right, so it's not necessary to include who did it. You can if you want, but it's not important to do it. Okay, so if you have a look on the screen now, we have some examples of those passive voice sentences. Okay, so like in the picture on the left, the cake was baked by grandma. Here, the important thing is the object, the cake was baked. So we want to know what happened to the cake. We don't care who did it necessarily, but we're only focusing on the action and the result. So in the example sentence number 1, several experiments were conducted by the scientists. The important things are the experiments and that they were conducted. It's not necessary to know who did it. Okay, we're only caring about the experiments and the conducting of them. Number 2, the new software was tested. Okay, we want to know about the software. We want to know if it was tested. It's not important to know that it was the engineers who did it. Okay, and the last one, the quarterly results were reviewed. Okay, we want to know what happened to the quarterly results. We're not so concerned with who actually did it. Okay, so they are examples of the passive voice sentences. Okay, so now we know what the active voice is and why we should use it. Now we know what the passive voice is and how we should use it. Now let's think again about the differences between them. Okay, so the active voice, remember, is subject, verb, object. So in that situation, we know the subject and we know that the subject performs the action. In the passive voice, where it is object, verb, subject, we are focusing more on the object and how the action affects the object. Okay. The subject is not important, and it can often be that it is unknown or it is hidden or it is so obvious that we don't actually need to say who did it. Okay. So think, for example, some popular uses of the passive voice are maybe in the ideas of crime and legal things and newspapers. So you could say that the handbag was stolen. Okay. You don't know who stole it. Maybe you don't want to get into legal problems by saying who you think did it. So you just say the bag was stolen. Okay. So that's if the subject is unknown. It could be, I mentioned this before, it could be that the subject is super obvious, so you don't need to say who it is. So you could say the criminal was caught. Now, who generally catches criminals? Now, sometimes the police do it, so you don't need to say in that situation they were caught by the police. Okay, because it is obvious that it is the police who would do it. So again, you don't need to include the subject, so you would use the passive voice. Okay. So it's very easy to create active voice sentences, but it's actually quite difficult to then transfer it into a passive voice sentence. So in this next slide here, we're going to have a look at converting it from active to passive. So your first step should always be trying to identify, as we've talked about before, the subject, the verb, and the object. Okay, so that should be your step. So if you look at the sentence, the cat chased the mouse, you're looking for the subject, which is the cat. You're looking for the verb, which is chased, and you're looking for the object, which is the mouse. So that would be your first step. Your second step then would be making sure that you change that word order. You move the object to the start, you move the subject to the end, things like that. Okay, and then this is the most crucial part. You need to make sure that you're using the correct form of the verb, which it is in the passive voice. So the way that you do this is you will look at the original sentence, the cat chased the mouse. So chased is in the past simple. What you should then do is you should find out what the past simple of the verb to be is. So it would be, in this situation, was or were. And then the same verb, chased, you need to put into the past participle form of the verb. So it is chase, chased, chased. So the past participle is also chased. So you would put was chased. But that is if it is in past simple. If your sentence, if your original active sentence is in present simple, for example, you would need to put be in the present simple, which is, are, or am. And then still, you would need to put your verb into the past participle form. So it would be is chased, or am chased, or are chased. If your active sentence is in the future, you need to put be in the future, which is will. And you still need to put your verb in the past participle form. So will be chased, things like that. Okay. So you would still need to change the be if it is simple, or if it is continuous, or if it is perfect, or perfect continuous. Okay, so let's take an example of this. So they wrote the request. That is subject, verb, object. So if we convert it into the passive, we've changed the word order, object, verb, and subject. Okay, so word order has changed. Then in the original sentence, it was wrote. So wrote is in the past simple. That means we need to change the verb to be into the past simple, which is was, and then wrote in the past participle form. In the third form is write, wrote, written. So you need to change wrote to was written. So the request was written by them. Okay, so we've changed the word order and we've changed the verb form. Okay, so let's circle back a little bit and think about why we should be using the active or why we should be using the passive voice in different contexts. So remember, the active voice is preferred when you want to be clear and direct, and you want to show that the subject is important. On the other hand, you use passive voice when the action and the object, therefore, are more important than the subject, and can also be that you want to be more formal, more objective, more impersonal. In that situation, you use passive voice. Okay, so now we know how to create it. We know why to create it. Let's now have a look at exercises where we are going to do that in practice. Okay, so here in this activity, we have 10 sentences, and all of these sentences are in the active voice. Okay, so you will need to change them into the passive voice. So remember, change the word order. Okay, so it becomes object, verb, subject. And also you need to use the formula that we've looked at, which is you're going to use be in the correct form. Okay, is it past, present, future, simple, continuous, perfect, perfect continuous? And then have a look at the verb in the original sentence, and then you need to use that in the past participle form, the third form. Okay. So pause the video now, have a look, write down your answers, and then in a couple of minutes, we will check to see if you have. All right, so you've had some time to look at those sentences now. Hopefully you've written them down, so let's see how well you did. So for number one, the team has finished the project. What you should have here is the project has been finished by the team. So the original sentence is present perfect. You've put be in the present perfect, has been. You've used the third form of the verb, which is also finished. And then you've gone object, verb, subject. So well done if you've got that there. So in number two, the company will launch the new app next month. You should have the new app will be launched by the company next month. So we've gone object, verb, subject. And the other thing we have done is the original sentence is future simple. We've put be in future simple, as in will be, and we've used the past participle form, launched. So again, congratulations if you got that one correct. Now, number three, the students were reading the book during class. The answer you should have had was the book was being read by the students during class. So once again, object, verb, subject. And the original sentence is were reading, which is past continuous. So we have put be in past continuous. So past was being continuous. And then we have the past participle form of the verb, which is read. Okay, on to number four. The researchers had already analyzed the data before the meeting. So again, object, verb, subject, the data had already been analyzed by the researchers before the meeting. Object, verb, very long verb, and then subject here. Okay, the original sentence is past perfect, had analyzed. So we have put be in past perfect, which is had been. We have put analyzed into the past participle, which is also analyzed. And we've got the correct answer there. So well done. On to the next one, number 5. The chef is preparing the dinner now. You should have the dinner is being prepared by the chef. Now, so as you can see, object, verb, subject. In the original sentence, we have present continuous. Putting be into the present continuous is being, and the past participle form, prepared. Number 6 then, the director hired a new assistant last week. That gives us a new assistant was hired by the director last week. The original sentence is past simple, was hired, was is be in the past simple, hired is the past participle. Number 7 then, the workers are constructing the building is being constructed by the workers. So again, object, verb, subject, and we have used be. In present continuous, that gives us is being and constructed past participle. Number 8 then, you can see it there on the screen. This is future perfect. So future perfect will have reviewed. So we need to put be in future perfect, will have been, and then reviewed stays the same in the past participle form. Number 9 then, you can see here the professor had explained the concept before the test. The concept had been explained by the professor before the test. Had explained, we've looked at this one before, had been explained. And then lastly, the company has made significant progress this year, should be significant progress has been made. So present perfect in the original sentence, be in present perfect is has been, and then made is your past participle form. So if you got all of those correct, well done. You get a little bit of applause for that. So that was our first activity. Let's now look at our second activity here. Okay, so just another interesting activity to test your ability to know if something is active or passive. Okay, so have a look at the sentences here. Decide if they are active or passive. And after this, once you've seen if it's active or passive, you need to change it into the opposite one. So if you see it and you think it is active, you then need to change it into passive. If you look at the sentence and know it is passive, you will then need to change it to active. So one more time, pause the video, write your answers down on a piece of paper or something like that, and then watch and continue to see if you've got the correct answers. Okie dokie, everyone. So hopefully you've got your answers here. So let's see if you got them all correct. I'm sure you did. So for number 1, it was passive. And oh no, sorry, forgive me that. So it was active. You would need it to change it into passive. So you would see that the lesson will be explained by the teacher tomorrow. For the second one, it was passive. You needed to change it to active. So it should be the author wrote the novel in 6 months. For number 3, The committee had chosen the winner, so this is active. You need to change it to passive. The winner had been chosen. Number 4, you should have had the team has completed the report. So you've changed it from passive to active. Number 5, it should be beautiful landscapes are painted by the artist. Okay, so you've changed it from active to passive. Number 6, you should have the company implemented a new policy last year. So from passive to active. Meals are prepared by the chef for the guests every evening. So you've gone from active to passive. Next one, the team finished the project ahead of schedule. So from passive to active there. On to the next one, the original was active. You've changed it to passive, so it should be the results will be announced by the manager soon. And number 10, the building is being constructed. That was passive. If you change it to active, you will have workers are constructing the building. So again, if you got those correct, well done. You get a clap, and you also get a thumbs up as well for your good work. All right, so that is active and passive voice. So we've practiced it here in class. If you do need any extra practice, then you can scan the QR code, which is on the screen, and that will take you to a wonderful little activity that I've created, which will test your abilities even more. A better way that you can also practice it is to use it in your assignments or in your presentations, things like that. Okay, so remember, practice makes perfect. So if you do have any feedback about our workshop today, you can also scan this other QR code, and it will lead you to a site where you can leave your tips and recommendations. And if you do need any other help from the English support department, remember, we are here to help you. It's in the name, basically. We are here to support you with your English. So there is my lovely colleague on the screen there, Christine, and there's also me on there as well. You're going to know who I am. But if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that through the email which you see on the screen, which is English_support_Manchester, WH, at esl.ac.uk. Very easy to remember. I'm not going to repeat it again because it's quite a long one, but you can see it on the screen anyway. That's fine. We can help you with many things connected to English, which are presentation skills, assignment skills, your listening skills, note-taking skills, reading skill, everything. And we can help you both in person and, like this, online. So if you do ever need any help at all, do not hesitate to get in touch. So it has been my absolute pleasure speaking to you this morning, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.